today I'm going to talk about joy and laughter and why they may be more important to your pain journey than you realize. The last few weeks, we've been talking on this channel about some of the difficult emotions that we commonly experience with our health challenges. And we'll talk about some others in the future. But today, I'm going to talk about joy and laughter and why they may be more important to your pain journey than you realize. Have you ever caught yourself saying, maybe when my pain gets better, or maybe when I have more energy? For years, that was my life. I wasn't just postponing vacations or hobbies. I was sometimes postponing joy also. I often believed that my life would begin after the pain was gone. Then I realized that life hadn't stopped. I had simply stopped living a lot of it. Today, I want to talk about something we don't hear nearly enough in the chronic pain world: laughter and joy and meaning. Not because they erase our pain, but because they remind us that pain doesn't get to own our whole story. Now, of course, I'm not saying just smile and everything will be okay. This is about something a lot deeper. It's about giving ourselves permission to keep living while we're still healing. I've been thinking about this lately, and pain has a way of closing windows. Maybe it closes the window of travel or the window of a career you loved. Maybe it closes the window of sports if you were into that, or gardening or dancing, or maybe simply getting through the grocery store without thinking about how much pain you're in. So little by little, more of our windows close, and eventually life starts feeling like we're sitting in a dark room. That's exactly how I felt. But here's what I actually learned. Joy doesn't tear the walls down. Joy quietly opens another window, sometimes just a crack, or sometimes enough to let a little light back in. So one person who really challenged the way that people think about illness was a man named Norman Cousins. Many of you may have heard his story, but he became seriously ill. And so he intentionally surrounded himself with things that made him laugh, comedy and humor. And he visited with friends, and he just focused on joy. Now, I don't tell that story because laughter is some magical cure. It's not. But I do think that Norman reminded the world of something that's really important. Joy isn't a luxury. It's actually part of being human, even when life is difficult. Sometimes people almost feel guilty laughing when they're hurting, as though joy somehow means they're ignoring reality. I remember feeling that way sometimes. Pain tried to convince me that joy and suffering couldn't exist together. But they can. They really can. Another person who's inspired me over the years is Johnny Erickson Tada. As you may know, she became paralyzed as a teenager after a diving accident, and her entire life changed in an instant. What inspires me isn't that she somehow escaped suffering. She didn't. It's that she refused to let suffering be the only story. She kept creating and painting and writing and speaking and encouraging others, laughing, living. And she reminds me that joy doesn't have to wait until suffering ends. Pain closed one window, but purpose opened another. Another woman who has deeply encouraged me is Catherine Wolfe. After surviving a catastrophic brainstem stroke as a young wife and mother, her life looked nothing like she'd imagined. And she definitely grieved those losses, and she still does. But she also talks about building what she calls a beautiful life. Not because her tragedy is beautiful, but because love and community and purpose and joy can still grow after tragedy. And that's encouraged me many times. Again, pain closed a window, but hope opened another one. Those stories encourage me, but I can't just borrow others' joy forever. I had to start finding my own joy, just starting with small moments, just tiny ones, like getting a cup of coffee on the porch, watching birds, which I love, listening to music, praying, laughing with Jim or my grandkids, watching a sunset, talking with a friend. Those little moments don't cure my pain, but they remind me that I'm still alive. I've seen the same thing happen with people I've walked alongside. The people who slowly rebuild their lives are not always the people whose pain improves first. Often they're the people who begin giving themselves permission to enjoy one small part of life again. Maybe one conversation, one flower, one walk. Those little moments don't seem very significant by themselves, but over months, they change people. One of the greatest surprises of my journey was discovering that meaning often grows in places I never would have chosen. If you told me 20 years ago that one day I'd be sitting here talking with you, I wouldn't have believed you. Pain closed many windows in my life, but somehow it opened one I never could have imagined. Helping people, walking beside them, watching their hope return. That's become one of the greatest joys of my life. Meaning doesn't have to be something huge. Maybe it's loving your family well. Maybe it's encouraging a good friend. Maybe it's making art. Maybe it's simply becoming the person your grandchildren remember as someone who loved deeply. None of those things require that you be pain-free. Meaning doesn't have to be big. It just has to matter to you. Pain has taken things from all of us. There's no point in pretending otherwise. Some of those losses are enormous, and some are heartbreaking. But I don't believe pain gets to decide whether we experience joy. I don't believe pain gets the final word on meaning, or laughter, or beauty, or love. People like Norman Cousins and Johnny Erickson Tada and Catherine Wolfe and so many of my clients, they've reminded me that life's still happening. Not someday, it's happening today. Maybe differently, maybe more slowly, maybe with profound baby steps, but today. So this week, I'd like to leave you with a question. What small window could you open this week? Maybe it's sitting outside for a few minutes. Maybe it's calling someone you love. Maybe it's watching your grandchildren play. Maybe it's laughing at an old comedy. Maybe it's simply noticing a sunrise or a sunset. You don't have to open every window, just one, because sometimes one small window is enough to let the light back in. One window at a time. And if pain has convinced you that joy belongs to someone else, I hope you'll borrow a little hope today. Maybe from Norman or Johnny or Catherine, maybe from me, until one day you discover your own joy again. Not because your pain disappeared, but because life quietly began growing around it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If you know someone who could benefit from this video, please consider sharing and liking it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel so that you can be notified when new videos drop. And as always, remember, your pain is real, there is hope, and my goal is for you to have your pain in the rear view.